Mage is Blue Mage is a limited job, and limited job is a poor choice of words that they assigned it. A limited job is an opportunity for a job to be outside of the battle system. So not only so you saying it, will they ever flesh it out as a real job implies A, that it's not fleshed out, and B, it's not a real job. In that it's not real gameplay. And so it implies that it's a partial job. It's not a partial job, it's a different job. It truly is different. And so when you design a dungeon, that dungeon has to be doable with all 4 unique tanks. And if you add a 5th tank, every single dungeon in the game has to be doable with that tank. And so what that means is first of all, every dungeon is restricted to only being doable with the tanks as they're available, right? And so if there's anything that makes these tanks unique, the dungeon cannot take advantage of something unique that paladins do, because then warriors, dark knights, and gunbreakers would not be able to clear it. What it means in turn is that paladin, warrior, dark knight, and gunbreaker, and any future tanks added to this game, a new tank or any future version of these tanks as they update them, have to also be able to do every dungeon in the game. And so if a dungeon requires an invuln, all 4 tanks need an invuln, even if it doesn't make sense for a tank to have an invuln, story-wise, lore-wise, fluff-wise, rotation-wise. So they all need roughly the same amount of mitigation, they all need roughly the same amount of damage output, they all need to have similar rotation styles, they all need to have an AoE. You can't have something like an evasion tank, because it would either be underpowered or overpowered, because everything is not built around evasion. And so the encounters are not designed with evasion in mind, so you cannot add an evasion tank to this game. That is the same in every other role. Every healer has to be able to heal every encounter, and every encounter has to be clearable with every combination of healers. That is the same with melees, physical ranged, and magical ranged. And so the content restricts the jobs, and the jobs restrict the content. And so when you sit down and say, I want to add a new job to the game, Sage, Reaper, whatever, Sage and Reaper are not, Reaper is not going to be some wildly insane, it's a necromancer and it's going to summon all these minions running around and they're going to be really powerful and I'm going to be really powerful and I'm going to be stealing life from my allies and then tossing that life onto other allies and I'm going to be doing, you can't do all of that because it's not balanced for the content. You can't. And so you can't add a Beastmaster that has 16 pets running around, because either the Beastmaster is really powerful, in which case why even have the pets? Or the pets are really powerful, in which case why even be the Beastmaster? And if you make both really powerful, why would I play any other job when I could be a powerful job with 16 powerful pets? That sounds way better. And so what the limited job system does on its own, Blue Mage regardless, just ignore Blue Mage for a minute. What the limited job system tackles as an idea is that the limited job system says, what if we didn't do any of that? What if we didn't balance for anything? What if we sat down and said, I want to make a job and I don't want to think about the content. I want to just make the job. I want to make Blue Mage. Well, how would it get spells? Well, I think it would be really neat, based on other Final Fantasies and based on what we want to do in Final Fantasy XIV, if it got its spells based on being exposed to them in content. Oh, so what would happen if you had a job get to max level and not have the first spell? It wouldn't have the spell. Oh. Well, what if we wanted to give it a spell that, what if a boss had a really cool spell that, one-shot things? It could have that. And it could one-shot things? It could one-shot things. It could have Final Sting. Oh. Well, if you do all of that, no other job keeps up with Blue Mage at level 70. Blue Mage is brokenly good. It's incredible. It's incredible. If you have never cast Ultra Vibration or been in an Alliance raid where an Ultra Vibration goes off and it just one-shots the entire wave of trash, it is unreal. It's amazing. And Blue Mage opens that up. My first job was Black Mage. The other problem is that when you're looking at adding content to the game, When we are running battle content, we're running our weekly lockouts, capping on tomes, progressing through raids, clearing dungeons. You can only play one job at a time. If you are in an in-game raid progression group and you are not running multiple characters and you want to contribute, you are putting all of your weekly lockouts, all the gear you get from Savage, everything you get from tomes, on your one roll. So I am a warrior main, so I'm putting it all on tanks until tanks are done. And so adding another healer does not add anything to my gameplay, because my weekly lockouts are bound by tanks. I cannot do anything outside of tanks unless I'm going to give up tanks altogether and now be a healer main. Okay, but they added Reaper. Well, I can't touch Reaper if I'm also going to be giving Sage all my best in slot gear. I cannot do it. And so you are not adding anything to the gameplay by adding jobs. Reaper and Sage do not add to the amount of content in this game in a large, sustainable way. The vast majority of players level up some or all of their jobs one time, and they spend 70 to 90 to 100% of their time on one or two jobs. They don't touch all of their jobs equally. And so adding jobs does not increase the amount of play, it just moves it around laterally. I used to play White Mage, now I play Sage. I used to play Monk, now I play Reaper. You're not gaining something to do. You do, however, gain something to do when you add a new way to play. Something new entirely. Right? Something new entirely. So when you add something like Deep Dungeon, where the progression is 100% independent, people go run Deep Dungeon even when they don't need experience from it. When you add something like a Golden Saucer game, or you add a Beast Tribe, or you add whatever, something tied to relic grinds or Ishgard Restoration, now at the end of a week of doing all of my battle content, I have something else to do. And so if I want to play a certain number of hours in the week and battle content already has its share of that, the more things you add to the game outside of traditional battle content, the easier it is for me to make sure that what I'm doing outside of my core battle content is something that I really enjoy. And so you want to add as many things to the lateral version of content in an MMO as possible so that the largest number of players possible can enjoy their time. So that when they stop enjoying Deep Dungeon, they can stop doing Deep Dungeon and they can do the next thing. No, Blue cannot do Palace of the Dead. And so what the limited job system does is it adds another way to play. It adds one more way. It's just one more thing. Now, when Blue Mage was first added, it was added at level 50, and it had a fraction of its total number of skills available. And people immediately focused on all the things it could not do. I can't take it into max level content. I can't use it in my relic grind at the time. I can't take it into Palace of the Dead. I can't. All focused on all the things it cannot do, not focused on the things it can do. When they initially presented Blue Mage at FanFest, the presentation said that they had already come up with the skills for levels 50, 60, and 70. They had already done that. And so we were released a partial job, even by their own internal definition, and we made up our minds based on all the restrictions of a partial job. Now, here we are at level 70, and we have seen it break the crap out of a current relic series. We have seen it get used for seasonal events. We have seen it get used for all sorts of weird Omega-based challenges and all these goofy things where people go try to take on various fights as all Blue Mage groups, some of which to get spells, some of which to get achievements, some of which just to see if they freaking can. We've seen it solo things. The Masked Carnival, it's solo Mage Tower type experience, is this whole set of levels to beat. And so it's this drastically different experience than any other job. And for it to become just another mage, like Black Mage or Red Mage or Summoner, and just join the magical range DPS, we would not have Masked Carnival. We would not have a unique skill gaining system. We would not have a bunch of skills to change from, the ability to run Blue Mage as a healer or a tank. We would not have the ability for it to one-shot mobs. We would not have the ability for it to have any of this stuff. So there are going to be people who don't engage with this, exactly like there are people that don't do Triple Triad, they don't play Mahjong, they don't do Chocobo Racing, they don't do Lords of Verminion, they don't do Gates, they don't do their Fashion Report, they don't do Hunts, they don't do Beast Tribes, they don't do Crafting, they don't do Gathering. By extension, they didn't do anything with the Skysteel tools or the Ishgard Restoration-based content. They don't do PvP. If we focus on the fact that if we don't make it one of these, people who play Black Mage won't play Blue Mage, we're not gaining back the variety. There are people who don't care about glamour, who don't care about the performance system, who don't have access to the housing system. I would not worry about anybody who says, if they do not make this a job, I won't play it. To be honest, then it isn't for you. And that's okay. There is nothing wrong with that. This is a theme park with 6 billion rides. And there is no rule when you buy a ticket to a theme park for $15 a month that you have to go in and ride every single ride, or you're doing it wrong, or you don't have fun, or it's not worth your admission price. It's not. There are so many freaking rides in this game. There are so many. And so to say, well, I don't like haunted houses, and if they don't make that haunted house into a roller coaster, I won't ride it, then don't. Go ride all the roller coasters. And the people who like haunted houses, I hope, get joy out of it. There are regularly pieces of content added to this game that are not for me, that I don't enjoy, and I let pass me by. Ishgard Restoration, I think, was an awesome piece of content, and I had literally zero interest in crafting 18 hours a day. Not an ounce. Did they take those titles away from me? No. They gave them to them. It's a positive, not a negative. They did not come in and say, we were going to give you a title, but now we're not. They said, hey, in addition to a full featured content list, we are also going to give these people a title. Also. We did not get Blue Mage as our only new job. We got Red Mage and Samurai. Mid-expansion, we added Blue Mage. And then we added Gunbreaker and Dancer. This is not in lieu of. This is in addition to. There are people who don't like the relic system, or liked Eureka and don't like Bosja, or liked Bosja and don't like Eureka. That is fine. That is fine. What's beautiful about this is if I don't like a ride, I can just go get on another one. Have you done fishing raids? No? Cool. Yes? Cool. And so what's beautiful about this is that Blue Mage is not for everybody. Just like all of these are not for everybody, all of these are not for everybody, there are people that don't like tanking. There are people that don't like healing. There are people that don't like melee DPS. And I don't typically like melee DPS in any MMO. And if next expansion they add a melee DPS, let's say, I don't know, hypothetically it's going to be called Reaper, it's not for me. I only tank. I am a main tank. All of my progression content, I have been tanking. They are adding a healer and a melee DPS. Not to take something away from me, but to give something to healers and to melee DPS. And so I understand there are people who don't like Blue Mage. But it will remain a limited job and should remain a limited job.